Hey there, second graders. It's Miss Haverstick again. Do you have your curious brains ready for another day of science class? This week, we've been learning so much about how the Earth changes. We use our curious brains to think about, does the Earth stay the same or does it change? Then we learned so much about weathering, erosion, and deposition. When the Earth is broken, when it's taken, and when it's dropped different places. That is a process that causes the Earth to change. And we saw that glaciers are a really big part of weathering, erosion, and deposition that have created such beautiful changes on our land, our Earth surface's land. Now today, we're going beneath the surface. We're going to see how sometimes there might be really fast changes, and there's still some slow changes too. We're talking about earthquakes and plate tectonics. Big fancy words. Now, let's dig into it. Below the surface is what we see around us all the time. Grass, mountains, hills, dirts. Below that, the Earth has lots of layers. And sometimes there is this one layer that is a really hot liquid. It's called molten, and it's right below the surface. On top of it are these plates, huge pieces, huge plates that sit on top of the liquid layer. And so the plates are called plate tectonics, and they are shifting on top of this liquid. When the plates rub against each other, this shifting is what causes an earthquake, a really scary experience where the ground is shaking. Sometimes it causes damage to buildings, and it can cause the Earth to change its shape. So these shifting plates and layers of Earth cause changes on the surface. Let's talk about some reasons or some ways that they do this. Here I have layers of towels, just like the layers of Earth. Below the surface, this green part that looks a lot like grass, are other layers of the Earth. And here is a liquid layer and plate tectonics. Let's pretend that my hands are two tectonic plates. Look at what happens as the plates drift towards each other. Other layers of the Earth start to fold in on each other. This creates a change on Earth's surface called a folded mountain. It was flat, but the shifting plates, a lot like what happens with an earthquake, causes a folded mountain. Let's see what this looks like in real life. In real life, a folded mountain looks like this. Do you see the curve in the mountain? This was caused by shifting plates, plates that happen below the surface on top of that liquid layer. Now, I think there's an even more familiar part of plate tectonics that we'll get to in a minute. Sometimes these shifting plates cause folded mountains. Sometimes they cause incredible mountain ranges like the San Andres Fault. This fault is a place where there are two plates. One's over here and one's here. And when these plates are shifting on top of that liquid layer, they cause new mountains to form. Now let's take a look at one of the most familiar forms. A volcano! Volcanoes, we know what those are. That's when there's a huge mountain that has access to lava that sometimes erupts. That lava comes from the liquid layer. So sometimes when the plates are shifting, just like there is when there's an earthquake, a volcano could form. They make a cone shape where there's access to that liquid molten layer. Here is a picture of Mount St. Helens. This is a famous volcano. Where we see all the steam, that's coming from the main part of the volcano. And all around it, we see damage that was caused when it erupted. Now, whenever that liquid layer collects right where the volcano is, and there's a shift in the plates, that's when there's an eruption. And when an eruption happens, the earth changes even more. From this process, new parts of land can be added even in the water. Here we see an addition of islands in Hawaii. The lava shot out of the volcano and landed in the water, creating a new part of the land. It changed. Second graders, do you want to see a real volcano? Do you want to see what this landform, this change actually looks like? Pack your bags because we are headed to Hawaii. Here we'll see a real live volcano. This is a national
To visit
park.
the island of Hawaii is to take a trip back in time, when the map of the world was still bubbling beneath the surface of the ocean. Explore the land shaped by the world's most active volcano with park ranger Andrea Ka'avaloa Okita, who grew up with Hawaii Volcanoes National Park in her backyard.
Do you see these incredible changes to the surface of the land?
Compared to the rest of the planet, Hawaii is very young. It's constantly changing and still growing.
Always changing.
Pelehonuamea, the fire goddess, created these islands, and she continues to shape this place with her power. I grew up in this park and come from a family of rangers. I'm drawn to this place by how Pele's story is linked to the island's geologic history. When you're here, you're seeing her handiwork.
So Hawaii is a perfect example of how
This magnificent Hawaiian rainforest is a vibrant ecosystem. It's home to many.
How the shifting of the plates causes so many changes above the surface. Let's go and explore some of this volcano together. Here we see the volcanic tube. Now let's see the volcanic cliffs. These different parts were formed from the volcano erupting. And here I see evidence of some erosion, how the water broke away at the rocks to create a mini tunnel. Now let's really get to the cool part, the active volcano. Check it out. Let's fly over the volcano. Like we're actually in Hawaii, seeing a real life volcano. A volcano that formed from shifting plates that caused new land to form. And sometimes these volcanoes erupt, creating new landforms and changing the surface of the earth. Wow. This video is going to show us an eruption that happened years ago. Look at how the lava spews out of the volcano. Now, this lava will eventually harden, and it creates and it changes the landscape that we see around us. All of this was happening below the surface, and all of a sudden, the lava spews out, and it changes what the world looks like. Wow. Second graders, it is so cool to learn about the different ways that Earth changes. Sometimes it happens really slowly, like with glaciers, but sometimes it can happen really fast, like when a volcano erupts. Regardless of how fast or slow it's happening, our world is always changing. Now, I want you to head to Google Classroom and show me everything that you've learned today about earthquakes, volcanoes, and shifting tectonic plates. How does what happens below the surface cause changes to Earth? Show me everything that you've learned and keep that curious brain working. I'll see you again tomorrow.